I will start and I will ask Adam, can you give us a summary of your workshop?
So I guess the things we kind of thought about in the workshop were there were a lot of things we thought about. I guess one of them was the fact that in order to decolonize our places of learning, or our attempts to decolonize our places of learning are really wider than within the university boundaries, right? The reason our curriculum is white is because white supremacy is a hegemonic force which infects many facets of our daily lives and of the world. And so therefore, in asking the question, why is my curriculum white, what we're really asking is, how can we challenge imperialism? How can we challenge the racial injustice globally? And so what we thought about was ways in which we can hopefully support movements in places like South Africa, as we've kind of demonstrated a little bit earlier, where much of the decolonizing work is really being done, and trying to perhaps take our lead from that a little bit. What else do we think about? We also talked, I guess, a lot about the problems that are existing within our institutional structures, the pushback that we get from other students and academics who think that what we're saying isn't relevant or isn't right, or that these push campaigns for a better sense of diversity is going to marginalise men or marginalise white people and things like that, and trying to kind of counter those kinds of criticisms, which we come across a great deal as well. And I guess what we really wanted to come out of it was trying to coordinate what you guys are doing here, what's happening in other parts of Europe as well, so that we can hopefully be as productive as possible in our attempts to disrupt the whiteness within our university structures, and hopefully make the movements of decolonisation in other parts of the global south a smoother struggle for them as well.
So thank you, Adam. Can you just tell us, very short, why our curriculum is white and what we can do about it? Try to do it as short as possible.
Sure, very, very short. Okay, so three things that we can do that we've been doing in London. Number one, creating spaces like this where we can have, outside of lectures, we can have decolonial thinking and decolonial learning, right? Whether it be reading groups, public lectures, that kind of stuff. Number one. I guess number two is institutional pressure, right? So calling for our universities to have curriculum reviews, reviewing the curriculum of different academics and what it is that they're teaching. Putting on feedback forms the fact that Eurocentrism is problematic, that patriarchy is problematic, that heteronormity is problematic, and it's not really addressed within our institutions. And I guess the third thing is our forms of popular protest and disruption. We've had popular protests at open days within our universities where we've we've embarrassed the university by exposing the way in which it's implicated in imperialism and white supremacy. And so these have been other kind of disruptive methods. So I guess those are the three things. And the reason our curriculum is white is because whiteness is hegemonic. That's the short answer.
Thank you, Adam. Dante? Can you give a short summary of your workshop and 2 questions?
Okay. Our workshop went very well, and I'm happy that my colleagues Melia will jump in and then try to organize this flat structure workshop, which people can talk, everyone, and not just me speaking about my own research. And then we end up in the conclusion that why is my curriculum white? Then with sort of thinking that the Eurocentric is the only European perspective, is the only perspective that should be used in the curriculum in Europe or in other places. But actually there are many perceptions that should be taken into account, and perhaps much more interesting. But we should have do not have that access, or do not have that choice. We should always using the European perspective all over again. Even when I was in Indonesia, using Malinowski, and when Malinowski said about Papua New Guinea, he said if you are an anthropologist and then you are doing a research in Papua New Guinea, you should hang out with the local people, not with the white people. And I was like, why should I hang out with the white people? I don't have white people friends. I was in Indonesia, for heaven's sake. Then when I was here, I just start to think, he meant that anthropologists should be white, because he didn't think that in Indonesia we also have anthropologists. So that's very interesting. And then what can we do? I think we already gather now and talk about this issue, and which is very important and interesting, and we just should carry on and organize ourselves much more, and then connect it to all over the world, and let's do this space for all of us, not only for the people in Europe, but also I hope that the students from elsewhere, from Indonesia, from Africa, from many places, we can just also do the research about European countries. Why not? And it should be also possible. Okay.
Can I just add something?
Very short, please.
Yes, I think that the question should also be expanded, particularly in the group that we're discussing, that the curriculum is not just white, it is very heteronormative and it is very middle class. So the question should be, how could we dismantle a very white, a very heteronormative, and a very middle class curriculum?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Now, you can clap. By all means, clap. So can you give a small summary? And the two questions are, for also for Derka, like why is our curriculum white?
Sorry, I had no idea there was something.
No problem. We're glad that you're here. So the questions are, why is my curriculum white, or our curriculum? It's not only my curriculum. And what can we do about it to make it less white? Sorry?
Summary as well.
A summary, a small summary.
Okay.
Very small summary.
So I might not do the best job of giving a summary. I'll do my best. I'm a little tired, I'm not gonna lie. But I know there were people taking notes. Hopefully those notes can be distributed. So I know we started with a very brief, somewhat simplified history of sort of the way we see Black people's relationship to education in the United States. We started with a policy that banded African descended people in the United States from reading and writing. And so we use that policy as a way to ground some of our sort of understanding of our relationship as Black people in the United States. Scoot up. Of our relationship to education in the United States, to how we see it unfolding to the present day. So we talked about things like, of course, the reality of chattel slavery and how that impacted our relationship to education, but then we sort of tried our best to take it through different iterations of movements, from lynching, particularly to what some call the civil rights movement or anti-segregationist movement, and then talked a little bit about the rise of Black studies programs, and so that being a sort of resistance of this white supremacist hegemonic force that has really limited our opportunities as Black people in the United States to having access to not just education, but to a quality education, and one that speaks to our culture and our experiences in history. We talked about different other movements within the United States, not just Black student organizing, but we mentioned that there were anti-war movements that were led by students. There were anti-apartheid movements that were led by students. There was the Students for Democratic Society talking about other issues, and these different student organizations were making connections with each other. So I'm going to answer that part.
Well, I think everything that Niall summarized sort of answers the question as to why the curriculum is so white. There's been a policy where whiteness is normal, and so it's normal to teach a society that's a former colony of Europe, a predominantly white society, a predominantly white continent, not exclusively, but when the United States was forming, a lot of the history, tradition, all of this comes from Europe. So in that tradition, in order to suppress the possible rise of Black people, indigenous people, queer people, women, it's important that you create the narrative to maintain that supremacy. So if you're absent, then you're irrelevant. right? So if you have no story to tell, and if you can't tell a story, how can you challenge the curriculum? So if it's illegal for you to read and write, then it's going to be hard for you to form a curriculum to inform yourself of the history that your people have created. So I think all of those movements that we tried to talk through, were in response to like the whiteness of the university, of so many other places, but especially the university. But I think we also talked about K-12, what it's like to have a predominantly white curriculum in middle school and high school. So by the time you get to the university, you're not even exposed to all this rich history, culture, tradition that other people have created. And so your understanding of what's beautiful, of what's intelligent, of what's right is essentially things that are white, and how that informs like how you are in society.
Thank you. Marta? I was waiting. I was like, we're not going to clap?
Okay, so we started to try to look at the formulas of accommodation that Eurocentrism find to always recenter the West and how this is provided by race. And so I had brought as an example the narratives on African national liberation movements in history textbooks in Portugal, but we didn't go very far with that. I mean, my aim was to try to show the kind of tropes that are used to allow Eurocentrism to reproduce itself, like the kind of categories, genealogies, the actors it selects, and how all this is provided by race, permeated by race. So, but instead, I mean, we found a lot of common frustrations. So we ended up discussing everything, I think. And from, the frustrations with learning, teaching, and researching on race and Eurocentrism and so on, but also the role of other kind of spheres, such as the media and IT, in combating racism and Eurocentrism. So we try to focus more on solutions rather than to diagnose a problem, which I think is sufficiently diagnosed. And so we divide it into aspects. First, to decolonize university itself. So one crucial thing we see is to unravel the links between academia, policy making, and pedagogic practice. I mean, in the lines in the Netherlands, this has been done by Philomena Essed and Kwame Nimaku. So it's important to establish the links of certain people in academia who are linked to governments who design and implement policies which consecrate always the immigrant to this kind of vulnerable position that must integrate into our society and so on. So we have to interrogate those relationships. We have to interrogate relations as well of academia and media and other spheres of pedagogic practice, like academics are involved in making of textbooks, which then students learn this kind of Eurocentric narratives on history, on the history of enslavement, amongst others. A second question, and which links to what Adam was saying earlier, is to mount a kind of institutional pressure. So the university should be in a kind of position that would have to state what its relation to the knowledge it produces. So to force university to take a stand as well, I mean, to put it in that kind of position. And then to raise awareness in less usual academic context. So we're talking about the Faculty of Medicine, for example. I mean, social science students may be a bit more familiar with this kind of debates, but some other students are not. So this would be an important question. And then regarding the decolonization of the narratives, especially historical narratives, someone suggested, I can't remember now who, perhaps I can't remember, to organize a course on codification, stylistics, and propaganda. I think it was you. So that we are more critical in how we read text, and to teach this to young kids. I mean, so that they learn skills in critical discourse analysis. And then the second is that that the perspectives that we take care that they are not just that we offer different perspectives with different points of departure, with critical approach to concepts and categories, so that we avoid the kind of pitfalls of Eurocentric narratives. I hope I did justice to the comments.
Thank you. You can keep the microphone for a moment, because we're going to go to the Q&A. I'm looking at Jesse and Mitchell just to get an acknowledgement here. See if everything goes well. And so we need... Can I have this feedback again?
Oh, yeah.
You got another one. I'll give this one to you, so you can go into the crowd also. And this is for you. Let me see if it's... Is it working? It is working better than mine. Wow, here you go. Okay. So we're going to do the Q&A. everybody who has a question, please raise your hand. And I know there can be a lot of questions at the same time, so I have to number every person so everybody can ask his or her question. I was thinking about a gender neutral way to say someone else, but just leave it at that. So, any questions? Not everybody at the same time. Ah, we have a question over there. You want to divide? Shall we divide ourselves?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Where it is comes?
No problem. Whatever part side you choose.
I choose this side.
Okay, so we have until we have about 10 minutes to do the questions because we've been using up our time. But I would like to thank everybody here, you in the audience, all the panel, because I know it can be very tiring. So give yourselves a big round of applause for sitting here from 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock.
Can I say a small detail I forgot?
Okay, a small
Small
detail.
detail I forgot.
Okay.
I mean, the importance of extending this network internationally and of keeping collaboration, because like in countries like in Portugal, you don't get these kind of discussions yet. So it will be important to, to continue this.
To continue, okay. So we should do another event.
Or networking.
Or networking.
Facebook.
Okay, thank you. So, can we go to the question? Can you stand up, say your name, and make the question short, to the point, no lectures.
Yes.
She will take away your mic.
Hi, my name is Leanne Mulder, and I actually want to know from the audience how many of you are teachers or have teaching ambitions? Because I just wanted to share a very quick example of what I've learned abroad that maybe relates a lot to what we discussed today. A friend of mine is a lecturer at the University of the West Indies in Jamaica, and he is in the School of Business. And usually we think of business as something that doesn't really deal with Eurocentrism and all these questions of class, etc. But this is a school which has mainly middle and upper class students, and he sends the students into the ghettos and downtown, etc., downtown Kingston, to work with the people there, to set up small businesses and to set up organizations. And in that way he links the university with the community, and also he doesn't teach. He says, I want the students to teach themselves and each other, and I want them to learn from the people who do not have access to this place because of money issues or other issues. And I just wanted to share that example with you for those who have teaching ambitions, so that you can see that in every possible area you can relate the university with people who do not have access, and also make people who don't have access benefit from the knowledge of the students and vice versa. And thank you for coming from all over, because I really enjoyed everything that you said.
Thank you. Any other questions or? Hi.
So I have a question on revolution. So what do you think it will take for the urgency and the demand and to like really rise up and to risk our tangibility of like our bodies and our lives for this revolution? Like violence is being committed against us. So what do you think it will take for like the urgency of this violence? And do you think the movement it will respond in violence with this violence being entrapted on?
Is the question clear? You need a recap? It's clear? Okay, who should answer the question? Anyone? Okay. It's going to be a challenge. Please keep it short. Who wants to start? Okay, I'm going to point Erica. What do you think about it?
So, what will it take for a revolution, and do I think the movement will become violent? Okay, so I answered the second question first. I'm not going to answer that question because that would be a movement tactic, and I can't put that all out here if it becomes violent. But I think that the first question, I think people have to have nothing to lose. And it's hard when you have a lot of tangible things that we see as people age, as people build families, as people become credentialed, they have more things that they have in their possession. So I think revolution is going to come at a time, or through a periods of time where people really feel like they have nothing to lose. One thing I think that's interesting about Black Lives Matter and about respectability politics is that we not only see certain type of people dying. We see black people dying, but we also see black people dying across class. So it's not that all the black people are dying are living in poverty. We have 17-year-old Jordan Davis, 2-parent household, college-educated parents who belong to a church community, and his mother's in a sorority. So they have middle-class attributes, right? But we still seeing that black life being taken. So what does it mean for someone who is middle class or elite to still feel vulnerable about their body? And will people like that, will people who are in vulnerable spots feel like they have nothing to lose to the extent where they're willing to fight with their body? Like, that's the question that I don't have an answer. That's why I'm in this struggle. I'm curious about that. When I think about Ferguson, I think about a former neighborhood of mine. I think about the conditions in which created the opportunity for Darren Wilson to meet Michael Brown and to kill him. I think about the number of black men who were stopped in Ferguson.
No, it's
okay.
You can
I think
talk
about
the computer doing its own thing.
Sure. So I think about the number of black men who were stopped in Ferguson every day for jaywalking and live in that condition on an everyday basis. It means that you're constantly vulnerable. I think about black men in New York City. More black men in New York City have been stopped by police than there are the number of black men in New York City. Right? So I think about people who are constantly in vulnerable spaces. What is it gonna take for them to ultimately resist, or for them to be defeated? And to feel defeated enough to want to fight offensively. So I don't have an answer, and that's why I'm a part of this struggle. Whether this movement can turn violent. Again, this movement is made up of many different people and many different organizations and many different ideas. So there are some people under Black Lives Matter who may think this revolution won't happen without some type of violence. We see that in countries where there are violent overthrows of the government. I don't know if I think that would particularly work because we're outgunned in the United States. So I don't know where that, unless y'all gonna come help us, I don't know where that help and support is gonna come from. But there are people who subscribe to that. There are other people who want to work within democracy, as now talked about a lot, who believe that change through the government is ultimately going to lead to a better society. What I do think is important is that we can disagree with people on how to achieve that revolution, but still support them in doing the work that they want to do. So I know that wasn't a super short answer, but I hope that at least tackles some part of the question.
Any other questions? All the way in the back. Go.
Hi, my name is Krishna, and I am an academic, but not in your sector. I'm a cultural economic microcredit expert. I'm a consultant with the UN, and actually, you're doing exactly what the revolution needs. My question is to the people from America, because you're about to lose your figurehead, the only black president in a developed country. Do you think that part of the race issues in your country, which are different from our country here in Europe, are a nervousness because things are going to get worse for young black people in America?
Can you restate the question one more time? It takes me a little bit of time to understand.
Sorry, the question is that when Mr. Obama leaves office, there's going to be a euphoric party, and young black people have been politicised by the last 8 years of them being more and more oppressed. Do you think the revolution is going to hit the streets?
Okay. So wonderful question. So we've been talking about President Barack Obama a lot since we've been here. It seems as his name comes up in almost every conversation. And I don't think that's a coincidence. So one of the things that I've constantly said is that President Obama sort of as a character in the American story, is doing very interesting things, particularly as it relates to young black people. So one of the reasons why President Obama became President Obama was because black young people voted for him in droves. So generation, we can call it hip-hop generation, right? Who were otherwise not interested in electoral politics became deeply engaged with the political system because they saw someone who looked like them, sound like them, and were familiar with running for the highest office of the land. And so that activated a generation of people who were otherwise apathetic in many kinds of ways, who didn't no longer believe in the process of politics itself. And so when Barack Obama became President Obama, he was elected after I think many of us began to realize that the conditions of our society had remained the same despite the fact that the face within the White House had changed. We began to ask really critical questions, right? So we were saying, well, damn, we have a black president, but my schools are the same. When I get sick, when I go to the hospital, I might not have health care to get the help that I need. I'm getting stopped and frisked when I walk out on the street. My mama still can't find a job. So what does the blackface mean? What is the blackface? So here we see, I think, an interesting dynamic where a sort of kind of hypnosis and sleepwalking that came over this, not just young people, but I would say a whole community of people who believed in this hope and change that was being evangelized and preached by Barack Obama and the administration began to wake up. And this was happening at the same time where we see young black people being killed by police and vigilantes left and right. As I said, one report says every 28 hours in the United States of America, a black person is killed by police or vigilantes. So this contradiction was coming to a head. And I think your question is really important because it's saying, now what's going to happen when sort of who was being articulated as a messianic figure, as a messiah of sorts, who was leading us to the promised land, right, is leaving and we still in the wilderness. Ain't no promised land, right? And so what I think, and I can't tell the future, but what I've been feeling on the streets is that young people such as myself and Derek and many other young people are starting to ask not just really critical questions, but starting to identify with politics that go beyond electoral politics. Right? And so it doesn't mean that all of us are rejecting electoral politics. As Derek always says, there's some who are interested in engaging the state. There are some who are turning their backs against the state. But what is happening, regardless of what side you're on, is that people are beginning to really say that electing a black person into a position of leadership is not equating or translating into black progress, right? So we have a black person in the White House, but we have 1 million more in the jailhouse. And so the question becomes, how do we get free? That's what we keep asking. And we do know now how we don't, right? We know it does not come by having a black president. It does not come by having black leadership, because so much of that leadership is really misleadership. So I don't know what's going to happen. I know that folks are mad. I know that folks are angry. I know that folks who are the maddest and the angriest are the ones who have the worst conditions. And I know that people are saying enough is enough. So we'll see. But I'm going to be a part of it.
Thank you. Is there any other question? So we have one, two, three.
Now I want to
Okay, yeah, because you set him on fire now. So, okay, you can say something?
See, now it's so much time for you to say it was on fire. Now I don't want to say nothing. But I'm going to say it really quickly. So it's interesting when you ask that, because the first person I thought of was Donald Trump. So I don't know if people are following Donald Trump, but okay. So at his rallies, people are shouting white power at his rallies. He's saying things like, do you know who are protesting in Ferguson and who's killing in Chicago? Illegal immigrants from Mexico. So we have a system right now where people are taking this person seriously, and he's just literally wrong and or lying. So I'm not concerned about black people's anxiety about President Obama leaving. I'm more afraid and concerned about white euphoria because Donald Trump could be president. That's much more dangerous for people just to believe that. That's the danger in identity politics. That they're more excited of a possibility of a new white president. They would rather take someone who lies to them just so they can say white power or all lives matter and feel good about it. I'm much more concerned about revolution happening that way, and that will be violent.
question. Is it a question for the other three panel members?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just have an observational
Remark.
remark.
A remark. Okay, we'll do the
Question.
remark. You were first, then second. Who was the third question? Okay. Here you go.
My name is Fergus Goeieman.
Can you stand up, please, if it's possible?
My name is Fergus Goeieman. I was just wondering if I hearing your observations and thoughts. So would you say rather than one small man in the white politics who didn't do the job, maybe it's a time to like a second civil war, civil rights movement 2.0 for people to identify with? Would that be better, or what do you think?
Thank you for your question. Before you answer that, I will say this. It is not allowed for the two members from the US to answer this question, just to keep it level. And so please can one of the other three panel members answer this question, if you don't mind. Yes? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to add that question is for the states as to Europe. So
Okay,
maybe
so-
as or worldwide or concerning our, because I believe it's worldwide
Mhm.
problems.
Okay, got it. So just added that it's concerning the whole world, also Europe, not only an American question. So, Adam.
I don't think we needed Barack Obama to become leader of America to realise that having a black person in the White House can still reproduce white supremacy. Because we have entire governments on the continent of Africa where every single person in that government is black, and we still have white supremacy, right? If you live on the Niger Delta, you experience white supremacy every day, right? So everyone in the Nigerian government is black, everyone in that Nigerian army is black, and they're killing black people for what? For shell oil and for white supremacy, right? So you could fill every position and have a super duper civil rights movement. Yay, my cousin's governor now, whatever. But the issue is systemic. So perhaps to go to some of the other questions that were made, I don't think we need another civil rights movement. That liberalism is gone, man. We need a revolution.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you. Thank you. You have to add something to that? No? Oh, okay. So we got the second question. These are also the last two questions we're going to do today. Yes? Here you go. Introduce yourself, please. Can you
My
stand
name is
up,
Astrid
please?
Elber.
Yes.
I have another type of question. Like I'm one of the advisors of the Bildung Academy that just started, I think, a few weeks ago. Most white upper class students from the University of Amsterdam. I'm one of the advisors of the Veerstichting. Veerstichting is also the same group, white upper class, very, very privileged white students in Leiden. These are the girls and boys who are going to take the top positions in our society, that's what we know. And some of them, especially those of the Bildung Academy, asked me to introduce me to society, to you. They say, we don't want to only download knowledge and reproduce it on another moment. We also want to be part of society. We want to connect and collaborate with people we live in this society with. And we want to know what are their questions. And together we want to build this society. What do you think about working together with groups of white students who are now at a moment, we have these refugees coming in, and they say, we're going to lose it if we don't collaborate. What do you think about this working together with people of this class?
Thank you, Astrid. So, you want to answer that, don't you? Working together, we're very white-based.
Maybe Mitchell can answer the question.
Sorry?
Maybe Mitchell can, because it's a Dutch.
Mitchell, no, Mitchell's not in the panel. I restrict the panel to the people who are in the panel. Thank you. But
It's a Dutch related.
I know, no, it's not going to happen like that. Yeah, sorry. No.
Okay. Can I respond now? I'm not sure whether I can really give answer to your question. I think for 2.5 years and more, I've been working with many in a group of white students who are PhD and privileged, and I know that I was went along with everyone and using the same standard that they have, but I was always the one who need to catch up rather than the other also listening to my point of view. So I'm not sure whether it works. I'm very pessimistic about it. Okay.
Martha? Thank you, Tante.
I mean, from my research experience in lecturing, let me more. The thing is, I mean, I do work with more kind of middle class students or not so well off students. And of course, I mean, as we discussed in the session, we have a lot of resistance about, questions of racism and so on. So the only possibility I see it is using it as a moment of research to actually learn about the reproduction of white privilege, which I'm pretty certain it's what's going to happen. It's like they're including you to show that, they are collaborating and so on. And you can use that to distance yourself and learn about the process, but, you have to keep it cool, I don't know.
Okay, thank you. So, we have 2 minutes for the last question. So you know what you have to do.
Okay, I'll try to keep it short.
Thank you. Can you stand up, please, and introduce yourself and ask your question?
Well, I'm Sarah, and I'm a student here at the FUG, and I study medicine, and I'll try to ask my question very shortly. Well, I've realized that there's something fundamentally wrong with medicine, and it's something that affects all of us, because when you go to the doctor, you get some medication or therapy, but those medications are actually designed for white men. And this is something that not a lot of people realize. I think the most people here do realize it, but in my year, not a lot of people think about it. And actually, I want to create awareness and let people know that this is something very serious. And actually, I'm looking for ideas how I can address this issue. So, any suggestions are welcome.
Thank you. Very interesting question. I know I have Mitchell here who wants to say something. You want to say something, Mitchell?
Because I really like the idea that you can share this insights. This event is part of a series of events, so we don't see this as a one-off event. It's really part of a process. That's why it's not decolonizing. So one thing we can do is organize an event called Decolonizing Medicine or Decolonizing.
You want to reply to that?
Yes, because the idea that I had was, organizing a discussion, and it would be multidisciplinary, so like medical anthropologists and people from, other types of disciplines in the healthcare. So not only med students, but like sociology people and, multidisciplinary.
I'm guessing Mitchell wants to react to that. You want to react to that?
Very short.
Very short, here.
I'm the program manager of medical anthropology at the FIFA, so.
I see beautiful things happening here. You want to react? Okay, you have 2 seconds.
Well, I'm at the student organization, and we're focusing on diversity in medicine. So maybe you can collaborate.
No, Mitchell, you will not react anymore. Saw your hand. Well, network later on. Please talk to each other. There are so many beautiful ideas everywhere, and if you keep them to ourselves, nothing will happen. I know that is a big problem, because you also have in medicine, when research is done, that they found out that biological research, that because of men being in the laboratory, the mice they did the research on would become very stressed because they could sense that it were men who were in the room, and they became... Not to say that there's a problem with men, but this is the research found out, but they actually didn't do anything with it because all the research they have done and everything they got out of the research is actually biased in part. But let's go back to the original question. Would any one of you would like to answer the question regarding how medicine and research is done by using a lot of white males? So the amounts of medicine are not always applicable to children or women or other genders. Anybody want to answer that? I know you are very tired.
I mean, it's not really a question. It's like, yeah, you're right. And you're gonna solve it. So I mean, someone else can try to speak to it, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm not a medical anthropologist. I know that, but interestingly, a lot of those experiments are done on black and brown bodies, at least in the United States. It was interesting that medicine for white people were being tested on black people. So, I mean, I have thoughts on it, but I think you're just making a statement and putting a question mark at the end of it. And I think most people here agree with you, and Mitch is going to come through, and y'all going to invite us next year so we can come to that conference. Because I want to learn about that. So I'll be waiting for that plane ticket.
Thank you.
Mitchell, you want to respond?
Thanks for answering. I just want to add to that we should watch out not making a distinction between like people because they are white, and it's not only that. It's not because of the race, but actually because of the body and like. In the example, women need less of an amount of the medicine than a big male of like 100 kilos. But if you never research that, you will never know the exact what it does to a person who has a different body composition. I see your hand.
Yeah, I want to add something if there's time.
Yeah, very quick.
Very quick. Well, this previously they found out that like a heart attack is asymptomatic for a woman, so a woman reacts differently. And something so seriously, like a heart attack, they didn't know that women react differently. So that's like a proof that there's something fundamentally wrong with medicine in general.
Like, you mean the symptoms are different for a woman than for men? Like, okay, thank you. Well, I'm just, thank you very much, the panel, for being so patient with us.